All right. Good evening, everybody. So this is going to be our second Watson Analytics WebEx, and I'm Elena. I'm one of the teaching assistants in a data analytics program. So here is tonight's agenda. We're going to discuss how to import data from Twitter, and we're gonna discuss what insights can you gain from Twitter data analysis, and we're going to discuss how to put together dashboards, and tonight I'm going to show you the infographic as well. Then we're going to create a storybook, and I'll show you how we can use the storybook. And then I'm going to show you where you can get the templates, right? What's an analytics exchange to help you get started. Then I'm going to show you the team folders, right? How to use the team folders, which will be eventually set up for your sessions. And I'm going to show you briefly some more additional resources that you may find useful. But very important reminder, you should not be using your browser back and forward buttons. And whenever you delete something, there is no recycle bin. Once you delete something, it's gone forever, right? And you should be using the menu instead of back and forward buttons, right? So now we're going to go ahead and we start loading Twitter data. So this screenshot over here is going to make sense once I start sharing my screen. Something for you guys to keep in mind is the workflow. First, we're going to load the data. Then we're going to build the models. Then we're going to present our findings, right? So now let me go ahead and go into share my screen. Share my screen. There we go. Now, as you may remember, right, you have three sections here: data, discover, and display. You have a personal area and you have a shared area. I'm going to explain to you the shared area shortly, but for right now, I'm in my personal area. So everything that I create, this is where it's going to be located, right? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to load data from Twitter. Now let's look here. I'm going to click on new data, right? And now, do you remember that earlier we were looking at the sample data sets? We were looking at the local files, right? But right now, instead, I'm going to select Twitter. What's going to happen here is that I will enter the search criteria, and Watson Analytics will try to find the posts on Twitter that match my criteria. And the topic of tonight is going to be Sprite. So a lot of you might like Sprite, right? So let's see what other people think about it. As you may notice, I may specify up to 10 hashtags. I'm just specifying one just for the purpose of this demo, but I can do 10. If I was going to specify 2, I have an option. I can grab the tweets that include both of them, right? So include any of the hashtags, or alternatively, I can say I want my tweets to include all of the specified hashtags. My next criteria is the language. I'm going to keep it all. Now here, there is a date range. I can specify the date range, right? And here is the name of the data set. That's going to be once I import the data. Keep in mind that you can have only one data set with the same name. So if I already had the data set called Sprite, I would have to rename it, right? So now let me do that. Let me see show estimate. I only have 99 tweets, right? So I can fix it to get more data. I can go ahead and I can change the year, right? I can change my starting year. I want to say 2006, and let me go ahead. Let's try it for 1 year, right? So now I'm going to go ahead and see show estimates again. Well, this is a little bit a lot, right? So what I could also do is I can just go back here and I can change my months, right? But that's something that we need to keep in mind later on. If we analyze the data by date or by month, we need to remember how far we went, right? we need to remember how far we went. Okay, so now let me go ahead and click, well, let me go ahead and select actually less, smaller date range. And the reason is it's because of I want the speed to be faster, right? I want the processing speed to be faster for the sake of the demo. Okay, let me go ahead and hit import now. And while it's loading, something to remember here is that you're going to see this little bird. It means that the data came from Twitter. And you're going to see the data quality score. And you're going to see the date when this data was imported. What you could do is you can open the data in refinement mode. And you can define the filters. You can add filters. And you can add the data groups and the hierarchies, right? Basically, almost the same that you've been doing so far in the course, right? So here is the data criteria screen that you saw. And here, I'm basically saying that once this data set loads, you're going to see the ellipses. And then you're going to click on ellipses and you're going to see the menu, which is refine, replace, rename, move, and delete, right? But what I want you to remember is that once you delete, it's gone forever. There is no recycle bin, right? So this is done. Now let's go ahead and look at what data is in there. I'm going to have to click on the ellipses and I'm going to hit refine, right? And what does that do? It's going to open the data in a spreadsheet mode. And take a look at this. So here is my year, and I've got my month, and I have a day, and I have an hour, right? So this is the date of the post. And here I have the country, the author country, the author state, and the author city. And this is a post sentiment, which is a neutral, unknown, or benevolent, or negative. And here, basically, the hashtags, and then it says if the post was original or if the post was a reply, and language. Then I've got the author information such as gender, name, and so on. Something that I want to point out here is that some authors have an unknown gender. So basically unknown, we can think of it as a way to represent the missing value, right? So now I've got the author's favorites count, and then for each tweet I'm going to have the number of replies and so on. Now, here, if you notice this, if you click here, it should show me the columns. It should list me the columns, and I should be able to, here, sorry, my fault, yep, here. If I click here, see this? Here is a list of columns, and I can choose to include or exclude the columns that I want to see, the columns that I don't want to see. Now, what is this? This is a hierarchy. So if I click here, by default, Watson Analytics picked up for me that I have a country, I have a state within the country, and I have a city within the country. It depends. When I did the demo for other sessions a few weeks ago, the hierarchy was not created for me, and I had to create it manually. Now it is created, so I have author country, author state, and then author city within the state. And I'm going to explain it to you. I'm going to explain to you shortly why this is important. And here is another hierarchy. So Watson Analytics picked up the relationship between some of my variables. So I have the year, I have a month, and I have a day. And what I'm going to do in here, I'm going to add hour. I'm going to add hour to this. Let me click on it. I thought I saw hour. Oh well. Forget about it. I thought I saw the post hour. But it would be nice to have it hour, so basically I can see on what time of day you have more posts about it, but well, forget about it. I would have to look at what day is. It might be, oh, here it is. Never mind, it's already here. I have to scroll. There we go, it's here already. My fault. So we have year, month, day, and we have hour. Okay, we are good. Now I'm gonna close this out, and I'm gonna close this out. Now here, remember the data quality scores, right? So basically it's looking if the distribution is skewed or not. And here you also have, it shows that you don't have missing values, but behind the scene, the gender unknown, it's, you can tell it's a way to represent the missing values. Now let me click here to return to the landing page. I did not make any changes, so that's the reason I did not save. Now what we can do is we can click here, and we're gonna start discovery. We're gonna start writing questions. We're gonna start asking questions. But if you notice that here, by default, it wants to give me, well, it's giving me the author name by country, but I'm going to modify this. Instead of country, you'll see what I'm gonna do. Let me click here first. So it's gonna give me the number of authors per country. That's what it's trying to do. But instead of author country, oh, excellent, it picked it up. Take a look at it. Do you know what this is? This is my hierarchy. By default, it picked up the hierarchy. Let me show you what I actually mean. So here it is. Look at this. I've got United States, right? When I click on the United States, it's going to give me the option. Oops, you have to click on it. Really click on it. Now I'm going to click on the ellipsis, and it's going to give me the option to go down. Watch. I'm going down, and my data will be broken down by state. So I can tell the darker the color is, the more posts, the more authors I have, right? The more authors I have in the state. See this? Because over here, it's telling me the meaning of the color code. So I can tell that most of the posts about the sprite come from California and Texas. These two states, right, have the most tweets in the United States. What I could do further, I can click on the California, right? I can click on California. I have to really click, and then here, and I can go down the hierarchy, and it's going to show me the data by city. So this is a good application of the hierarchy, because you can look at number of posts per country, and you can even look at the number of replies per country, and then you can look at the counts by the city within the country. Now what I can do is I can click, and I can click and go back up the hierarchy. Go up, right? Here it is. So right now, I'm back in the United States, right? I want to show you something else. This is multidimensional. I can have a bubble inside each state, and I can use the bubble color code to represent one variable, and a bubble size to represent another variable, right? So what I can do is I can go in. As you may remember, I have author tweet count, but I also have the author followers count, right? So I can drag and drop here, right? I got the followers, so that's gonna be my circle color code. Well, basically you don't see much difference. It's because what I have to do is I also have to check the aggregation, what it's doing, properties, right? So here, this is a problem. It's doing an average. I don't want it to be doing the average. I want it to be doing the count. So I'm interested in the number of followers, the count, rather than the average, right? There we go. So now what else I want to do is I can add another one. I can add the author friend count. So the more friends the authors have, right, the more friends I have, the larger is the circle. So we have several dimensions. I can further do another map. I can break it down by the gender if I want to. I can do that. So I'm going to have a separate map per gender. But, well, see that? So here we have gender female, male, and unknown. So sometimes you want to see if the gender makes a difference, right? In this case, it's really hard to tell because we have most of the people with unknown gender. So let me go ahead and let me remove this. Let me remove this. Now what I want to do is I want to go ahead and I want to save this, but I want to give it a meaningful name. I'm saving it in the personal area, and I'm going to save it as sprite discovery. Right? I'm going to save it as a sprite discovery. I'm going to hit save. And what I'm going to do right now, I'm also going to rename this as by location. Right? So here is my map. Now what I want to do is I want to do something else. I can do what drives the sentiment, for instance, right? So I'm going in here and I'm going to type sentiment. Right? Let's see if I can get a nice decision tree. Now I need to tell you that in some cases the decision tree may or may not work. I've tried some Twitter criteria for which the decision tree did not work. It did not find any rules. But here, I believe for this search criteria it should. Okay, but while it's loading, you can also click on the analysis panel, and it's still computing the rules. But in analysis panel, let me show you what's gonna happen. Sentiment, it has 5 values, right? So if I look at my confusion matrix over here, notice that the matrix is now 5 by 5 because I have the actual sentiment value and I have a predicted sentiment value. So the way you read it, for example, I have 44 posts, right? 44 tweets that were predicted as negative are actually negative, right? I have 686 that were predicted as neutral are actually neutral. So basically, the correct predictions are going to be on a diagonal. So if I wanted to do the prediction accuracy, I want to add the numbers on a diagonal, and I'm going to divide it by the sum of all numbers. Something else that I wanted to show you guys, this is really interesting. Do you see this? Supervised merge was performed. Supervised merge. And I'm going to show you what it is. If I look at this here, let me look at the actual tree. I'll show you what that means. So take a look at it. The first splitting criteria is a language, right? Here is my language. It's one of the splitting criteria. It's rather second. Now, take a look at it. Here is my language English, right? In here, supervised merge, it means that it merged several values, right? It said if my language is any of the above, take this pass. If my language is either French, German, or I believe it's Spanish, right? So if I hover, if I really select this, right, it's supposed to show me the actual value. I have to hover over it. So if I'm French, German, or Spanish, I'm going to go through this path. So this is a supervised merge when the values are actually grouped together, right? And here it goes by the number of retweets. So that one, I think it should be the beginning, right? So if you look at it, it's gonna show you what it's doing, the supervised merge or the beginning, right? So here it is. I just wanted to point that out because this is something that you may not have seen before. And here is my model. And here I can just basically trace it and see what drives the post polarity. But once again, here I can go back to decision rules, and what I can also do is I can pick here at which polarity I'm interested to look at. If I'm looking at mostly positive or if I'm looking at mostly negative, right? So now I'm going to rename it as 3, right? Here it is. Now I'm going to go ahead and save it, and I have to add some more visualizations. And let me do what we have not done in the last demo, in the last demos rather. I can go ahead and let me do the grid. So here I'm going to select the custom, right? So this is basically going to be a summary table. So what I have to do is, let me minimize this. This is a custom visualization, and I would have to drag and drop. So for instance, suppose that I want to do the counts by sentiment, right? So let me drag and drop. And okay, here it is. And now I want my counts to be, perhaps I'm just making it up. Let me see. I can do language. This is just an example. So here, what am I counting? I have to do something like author post, author tweet, or something like that, right? Author tweet count. And what else I have to do is I have to make sure that I'm not doing the average. See, this is a problem. I see the decimal points. It's because the aggregation method is set to average. You need to make sure that this is count, okay? So you need to make sure that this is count. And now we're going to close this out. Yeah. So here it gave me the breakdown by language and by sentiment. So this is one way you can do. So let me go ahead and rename this. And I'm going to say sentiment by language, right? By language. Right? So now I'm going to go ahead and save it. Always save it. Always save it. Remember it. So if it has a little asterisk next to the file name, it means that you made changes and did not save, right? You have unsaved changes. Now what we're gonna do, we're gonna do another one. And how about the time series, the change over time? Okay, so let's go ahead and do this. So this is gonna show you the tweet count over posted time, right? So this is a visualization it's gonna do. Okay, now I can actually drill down, because what it's doing here, it's showing the number of hashtags, number of matching hashtags per month. But what I could do is, first of all, I can filter it out if I want to. I can remove the blank, right? This is what I just did. I deselected the blank. I'm only interested in. Oh, actually, what I did, I highlighted. This is a new highlight feature. I clicked here and it highlighted everything that matches this value. What I could also do is take a look at this hierarchy. I can click on it, and I can select it by the day, right? I can select it by the day if I want to, right? I can change it, because remember, this is a hierarchy. So if I wanted to, I can go back and just do this. Author count by date, yes. But let me just not do that for right now, and let me just do the save this. And the reason is it's because I want to show you additional visualization. So let's do this tweet over time. Right? So, and you can play around. You can change the colors, you can do the formatting, and so on, right? And you can do the variations. So you can play around with this. At your leisure, let me go ahead and save this. And now we're going to do more. And I'm doing more. It's because I'll show you. I'm gonna need to have enough visualizations to start building the displays. Okay, so now some of you try to do the network. So you would use this if you want to show the relationship between tweets and retweets, right? So what I could do here is that I can select, there is a field that's called the sentiment positive signals. So what this field does is it tracks the terms that are indicators of the positive sentiment. So let me do this here. And what I want to do is I want to show the relationships between the sentiment terms and the actual terms, which terms appear together in the same tweet, something like that. So I can look at the matching hashtags, or I can look at the related hashtags rather, right? So I would have to go and I would have to find this one. It's not the tweet, it's not the gender, it's rather retweet. No, it's not a retweet count, but I would have to find it. So there is a field that basically tracks the hashtags, right? And basically, what it's gonna do is it's just gonna show the it's just gonna show the relationship between the positive indicators and the actual word in a post, right? Well, let me just do the I can just do the matching hashtags just to show you how that works. So here you're gonna see one green circle. Oops, sample data. I forgot that I have to do the line width, and the line width is going to be the tweet count. So the line width is going to stand for the number of posts in which these two guys appear. The thicker the line, the more posts those two terms appear, right? So that's basically what it's doing here. So this is a word sprite, and here it's going to show me which terms are associated with this term, right? So if I had more than one hashtag, I can show which terms are associated with each one. I would have more than one green dot here, right? So this is something else that you could do, right? But I thought I saw the responses before, but anyway. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just rename this and let me call it as network, right? So this is what you could do. Now I'm gonna do I can do the word cloud. Let me see. Here it is. This is my word cloud, and what I could do here is that I can look at how frequently I can look at the relative frequency of the terms, right? So that's basically what it's gonna do, and I can look at see that we had that hashtags. Oh, here it is. We can look at the hashtags. See this? Oops. Right. So here it is. This is my hashtags, and now I can say that the size, right? The size of the word is gonna be the number of tweets in which this word appears, right? So I have to do the author tweet counts, and I can also, if I wanted to, I can also add another variable, such as the color code, right? It's gonna stand for the sentiment. So let me drag and drop this. Oops, here, color, right? And it's gonna show me the color code stands for the sentiment, right? So I have, in this case, mostly I have ambivalent and negative, right? So let me go ahead and oh, it's still trying to load. But while it's doing it, let me go ahead and still try to save this. I click here, I'm saving it. And now I'm also going to rename this. and I'm gonna call it the word cloud. Okay, so for right now we're good. What I'm gonna do right now, it's saved, right? Okay, good. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to go back to my landing page, and there are two ways to go back to the landing page. You can click here and click on Watson Analytics. Alternatively, you can click on a logo, because clicking on a logo, right, picks up the first item in the menu. We also have to save. It looks like now it's showing me that I just made my last change. So to save, I can either select save or I can just click here. Because when you click, by default, it's just picking up the first item in the menu. Now let me go back. I'm going back to the landing page, and now I'm ready to present my findings. I'm gonna hit on display. As you may remember, last time we were doing the new display. Last time we were doing the dashboards, right? Let me do the first one. Let me do the dashboard first, and I'm gonna call it Sprite Dashboard, right? So when we're speaking about the dashboard, we can have more than one tab, right? Now what we could do is we can choose the layout that we want, and you can choose the free form, or you can do just one visualization. Let me do just one, and here I'm having the options. I can choose any of the visualizations that I created. So let me click on a personal folder, and I want to do the sprite. Oops, Elena does not know how to spell, but that's alright. Let me click here, and now I'm going to pick my tree. Look at this. I put my mouse over the blue bar. Right? There we go. So now I've got my first tab, and let me rename it. I'm going to rename it as Decision Tree. Right? So this is my first tab. Now I'm going to add the second tab, and I'm also want to keep just one. And since I have the tree here, let me add this one, right? Let me add this one. Right? And I'm gonna call it, let's call it the sentiment by language. By language. There we go. Now, if you may remember, you may add the filters that apply to all tabs, or you may add a filter that applies to a single tab, right? Save. Now, always save, always save. Get into a habit of it. Now, what you could also do is you can get this in a focus mode. That's called the focus mode. When I click here, all right? So notice this interface is a little bit similar to display, and I can change the formatting, and like this is an example, and you also see some examples in the slides where I went in and I changed the background, something like that. Right? Here it is, and then I can minimize this, and I can just go ahead and I can save this. So now we have the first visualization. Right? Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna do another one. I'm going back to my. Ooh, what happened? Okay, let me kick back. It's because I clicked on a. Now let me click on the new display, and this time I'm going to do the infographic. Unlike the dashboard, infographic is a single page. It does not have tabs. So basically you have all of your visualizations on a single page, and if you want to, you may also, you also have a choice of the layout. You also have a choice of the layout. I'm going to pick this one right here. Now, what I could do is I can also drag and drop the displays. I can drag and drop, I'm sorry, not the displays, the models, the visualizations. Something I want to point out is here, see this filter? If I add a filter to this area, it will apply to all of the visualizations in the infographic. Also, you can hide this filter area just by clicking here. You can show and hide. Now what I'll do is I'm going to go to the personal area, and I'm going to my discovery workbook, and I'm going to add the visualizations that I have not added yet, which is this map right here, right? And I also did not use my network, right? I use the other two. I did not use this one, so let me see this. I'm going to use these two right now. Click. And I'm going to use this one right now. Okay, right? So this is my infographic. Now, I don't have any tabs. Notice that it's a single page. What I could also do, let's save this first, and then I'll show you what else you can do with this. So, save. Oh, I don't like the name new infographic. You want the name to be descriptive. And I'm going to put sprite infographic. How does that sound? Sprite infographic. Okay, and it's going to be saved in my personal area. For right now, we are working in a personal area. There we go. Now, what else I could do is, so this is called the focus mode. When you select on one of the visualization and you want to modify it further, so you click this. This is called the focus mode. Just the terminology. Now I can modify it, and notice that this is a recent change. Watson Analytics just added that opportunity to zoom in and zoom out, zoom in, zoom out. Okay, but if you want to see the whole visualization, this is what you click on, right? Now let me click back. Now if you notice that you have the move forward, bring front, bring back. I'll show you the reason you have it. It's because I can click on widgets, right? I can click on widgets and I can keep on adding layers on top of this. For instance, I can add my shape, right? And I keep on adding another shape on top of this shape, right? So I can control, I can do bring forward and bring back. Well, it's just giving you what you can do, because sometimes you want to add shapes to visualizations, like errors or anything you want to highlight. Just an example. Let me go ahead and delete this, right? And also you could apply the filters. And the way you would do this is the same way as you do the dashboard. You would need to click on a filter here. Then you would pick this. You would need to pick any field that you want to filter by, right? Like, for example, I want to filter by the favorites count. It's just an example. And then I want to click, and I want to set up the conditions. For instance, I can say that I want to look at the tweets from the authors who have at least one favorite. And this will apply to every single visualizations here. Every single visualization. What I could also do is, if I change my mind, I can just clear the filter or delete the filter. Clearing the filter will delete the filter criteria, but it won't delete actually the filter from this area. But I'm going to go ahead and delete it. Okay? And now I'm going to save this. Save. Now I created two displays, right? I have my infographic and I have my dashboard. Now I'm ready to present this to my manager. Well, of course, the way it is right now is going to be a little bit difficult for my manager to follow. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to the landing page right now, and Watson Analytics has this capability called Storybook. So basically, a new display, export Storybook. I'm going to enter the Storybook name, and let me call it, for instance, Sprite Findings, right? This is a Sprite Findings, and this is going to be the storybook. And you'll see a difference shortly. And I'm going to hit create. Now, something that I found out, and I found it out this week, is that if you may have noticed that for displays and infographics, here you have an option Save As. You can save a copy. You can make a copy, save copy. This is not the case for the storybook. You cannot save a copy, so whenever you're making changes, be really careful, because if you end up deleting something, right, or if you want to make a change, there is no way to undo. There's really no way to undo something easily. So now what we can do here is that we can enter any description, right? So let me do this, copy, paste, and I'm just going to add the word presentation. Now I can also click here and I can pick my sprite logo. Well, it does not look too nice, but I'm just giving you an idea. You can add an image. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to be adding my findings, my displays. Something to keep in mind is that when I play my storybook, the visualization, the display that appears here is going to be the first display that I see. So now I have to go through the list of my displays that I have access to, and I need to find the ones about the sprite. We created 2 displays today, right? Here it is. Notice that Watson Analytics recently, it made it a little bit easier because it tells me the location. It tells me that this here is saved in my personal area. It makes much easier, especially for me, because as an admin, I have access to all of the shared folders, right? So now let me go ahead and do this. Oops. There we go. And now, okay. Oops. I thought I edited it. Okay, yes, I did. Now what I need to do is we can add a thumbnail. See, it does not look that really nice, right? So what I can do is I can click here, and now it's giving me the options of the thumbnail that I want to add. And since I believe we did the decision tree, right? We did the predictive model. Well, this is similar. This is like a drivers, so that will work. Let me do this. Choose. Okay, so this is my thumbnail. Now here I can keep this as is, or I can rename it. What I'm gonna do now, I'm going to add my infographic right here, and I'm going to click here, and I'm going to add another. Well, I'm just gonna go ahead and add this one, since we have network, we have a bunch of stuff in there. Or let's add the word cloud. I'm just okay, choose. Right? So I have 2 visualizations. Let me go ahead and save this. Something else to remember is that, like all infographics and displays, the Storybook has 2 modes. It has the view mode and it has an edit mode, right? Right now I'm in the edit mode. See this? If you see the glasses here, it means you're in the edit mode. You can make changes. And another change that I can make is I can add the annotation and the notes, explanation. So let me click here. If I click here, right, over here, it's showing me that I have the decision tree and the sentiment by language, right? So that's showing me the content. This is what an end user will see on the first page when they play my storybook. I can go here and I can add a little narrative. I can explain this as sprite sentiment model, something like that. right, I can do this, and I can say add a description, so that's gonna add a little comment, right? So what I could also do, I can add more, I can keep on adding, right? But, well, you want to make sure that the description that you add is descriptive, let's say this way. Now I'm gonna click OK, right? And I'm going to do another save, and now I'm gonna switch to the view mode. Glasses is a view mode. And let's see what's gonna happen. So my manager, this is how my manager is gonna use this. They're gonna click here. So this is the first tab that they're gonna see. This is called the tab findings. Right? This is the tab findings. This is what your findings is, and you want to share it with me. Here, you could also, in the edit mode, you could also add the annotation within the visualization itself. I did not add any, but if I did, I would have had an option to show and hide them. And this is, of course, this is interactive. See this? Like I'm looking at ambivalent, and I can change to neutral, and so on, right? And I can go to my next tab. Now, here it's something to keep in mind. If your dashboard display has two tabs, it means that the page in the Storybook is also going to have two tabs. So when you design in it, you really need to plan it, right? So now I want to go to the next tab finding, right? And here it is. That's going to be my infographic with 4 visualizations. So this is how basically you would use this. And since I did not add any notes, the user might be confused, right? They may not know what I'm trying to show, but, well, this is just for the purpose of the demo. Now, what I also need to show you is that if I click here, I can preview the data. This is the data that I'm using for my Storybook. Now, the Storybook may use the findings from one or more data sets. There could be more than one. If there are more than one, they would be listed here. But then when I select the data set here, I'm going to be able to see which displays use this data set, right? Okay? And now I can click here. If I click here, it's showing me the information about this data set and which displays use it, and the date when the data set was created, which was today, right? What I could do, I'm not actually going to do this, but I'm showing how the end user would use it. So you can click on replace, right? And then I'm not going to actually do it, but replace will allow you to rerun you can rerun the Twitter data load, and you can specify the different date range perhaps, right? So you could do that. I won't do it now, but in theory you can do this. I'm just explaining what you can do. Now to close this out, you click here. Now what I'm going to do is, this is something that can keep us awake all night, but I promise we won't. But I want to show you at least one iteration of this. So I'm a manager. I look through it. I look through the Storybook. I like the findings, but I want to see something else that's not explicitly here. What I could do is I could select Ask Question. Now note that I can use my Storybook to ask additional questions. Okay, so now what it's doing is it's trying to find the suggested visualizations for me. Notice that this interface is a little bit similar to what we saw in Discovery, right? So I can basically choose, for instance, I can do the drivers, or I can do just anything I want to do, right? So we can do retweet count over hour, perhaps. Let's try that. And what it's going to do, secretly, it's going to create another discovery. It's going to create another model that you will see on the discovery tab, right? So now what I could do is I could change it actually. I could change it. Let me go back and let me do the author day. I saw it. Okay, here it is. Hour. I want to change it by to hour. There we go. Now what I want to do is here now it's showing the matching hashtags, but instead I want to do the sentiment. I'm gonna do back and I'm going to pick the sentiment. Here it is. Because I wanted to show you how this is gonna look like. And you'll see this example in the slides, right? So here is basically showing you sort of like the proportion of the passed by the sentiment polarity. And as you can see this showing you the time of the day when, sort of like peak time of the day, when you have the most tweets about your topic. So this is a by hour. And let me go ahead and rename this, and let's say it's by hour, right? So this is what I just did. Now what I could do is, let me save it as a new discovery, and I eventually, what I want to do is I want to add this new finding to my storybook. I want to add this new findings to my storybook. So let me do this, right? Next discovery, right? So this is my next one. But in order to add this, I would have to create a new visualization, right? I have to create a new visualization because I want to add it as a new tab finding. I don't want it to be as another tab, right, of another display. I wanted to add it as a new tab finding. So what I'll have to do is I have to click here and I'm going to do the new display. I want to do the dashboard and I want to call this let's call it as sprite new finding, right? And I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna hit create. Okay, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pick the layout and we're going to the personal, and I'm going to go back and I'm gonna find my sprite next discovery. I will drag this and drop and save, right? I have to save this, save. Now I have to go back to my storybook. One way to go back to it is to use a menu. This is a very powerful menu and I don't want you to be using back buttons. That's not good. So see this, if my storybook is still open, it's going to show up in here, right? It's going to show in here. Just wanted to show you this. Right? Because what I don't want you to do is hitting the back and forward buttons. Yes, it's here. And if there was an asterisk next to it, it means that the last finding was not saved. You want to make sure that all your work is saved. Right? So now here it is. Now what I have to do is, right now I'm in a view mode. Right? This is a view mode. I cannot edit it. So what I have to do is I have to click on the pencil, and now I need to find my new that I just added the sprite here. I just added the sprite new finding. I have to scroll down and I have to drag and drop. See this? Oops. Here it is. I have to drag and drop. Well, I'm not going to do this because I keep my promises, but that could keep you going and going and going and going online long. The only thing I'm gonna do now is just add a thumbnail. That's it. How does that sound? And now I'm also going to discuss the group work. This is very important. There are some important things that we should do and some important things that we should not do. So now we save it. Saving your work is yes. Now, let me go back here and let me show you something. You have a personal area and you have a shared area. When we move on to the week 10, right, or at the end of week 9, your instructor and or TA will create the study group and you'll be assigned your study group. Shared area allows sharing files with your team, but since we have to share this application with, we have about 315 users in the system, we have some rules that we need to follow. So everybody will be saving the work in the personal area or in the area designated to the study group. Nobody will be saving the work to the root of the shared area, because anything that will appear in the root of the shared area is available for everyone in the system. It means anyone can see it, anyone can modify it, and so on. So, Elena made a decision. Anything saved in the wrong location will be deleted. Elena created a trash can. And everybody who saved their work in the wrong location, it ended up in this trash can. They have to contact me and claim me, right? So if you ended up making that mistake and Elena deleted it, you know who to contact me, right? Now, it does not happen quite often, but it does. Well, so now we know the rules. Next, I'm going to show you how you access your study group. And for the purpose of the demo, I'm going to pretend that I'm enrolled in a session 9040 because I had the group set up. So I'm going to pretend that I'm Steve student and I'm a member of group 1. This is how I access my group. In the left panel, this is a directory tree. So see this IC shared, I'm gonna click on this plus sign to expand the folder, and then I'm going to navigate. Now what you will see is you will see two folders, more sample data set, because this folder is configured to be visible to anyone. So you have a read only on this, and you're going to see the session in which you are currently enrolled. Right? So now I'm going to be temporarily enrolled in this session, right? Data 610 9040 session. And I am in the group 1. What I have to do here, I have to click on this, expand, and then I have to select my group. Well, right now the team does not have anything. It's because they just got the group assigned, right? They just got the group assigned. But I'm going to show you, and then I'm going to show you how to share and how to unshare. I'm going to undo, so that way the group members are not going to be upset at me, right? We've got another new team member, unannounced team member. So now let me go, oops, I have to be really careful, really, especially like me, you don't want to be dragging and dropping. Okay, now, what I'll do is I'm going to go to my personal area, right? Personal area. And let me try sharing something with the team. Like this one, for instance, right? And this is, I tried to play around with the bazooka data, bazooka gum. But the reason I did not like to use it for a demo is because I was unable to build a model. For some reason, it would not allow me to build the model. Now, let me see what I can do. Let's say I want to share this data with my team. To do that, I have to click on the ellipsis, and I'm going to select Move. I click on the ellipsis, and I selected Move. Now, pay attention. I have to click on the Shared. I have to expand this. Very important, because if I don't do this, They're going to be Yelena. It's going to go to Yelena's trash can. So now this is shared. And now I'm going to scroll down and see I'm enrolled in this session, right? I'm going to click here, expand, group 1, and I'm going to hit move. Now, very important, keep this checked and do not change anything. You want the files inside your folder to inherit the group permissions. At some point in my Watson Analytics lifespan, I made a mistake. I ended up by accident removing the admin rights from myself. That was not fun, right? There is also a possibility that you may end up changing the permission, unintentionally, and the folder can become inaccessible to anyone. If I just go ahead and select everyone known and forget, when I select everyone known, guess what? I take away the right from myself, right? So whenever I set up the folders, I had to be really careful, because when I selected known for everybody, immediately I have to go in and I have to change it to give myself full access, to make sure that I don't lose access to the folder. Otherwise, that's it, it's gone, right? So what I did now, I selected the folder, right? And here it just basically telling me who can see my file. And basically it should be view and edit access for my teammates. My teammates will have the view and edit access on that file. So I'm going to click OK. Now, very important, usually I make this mistake on purpose. I didn't make it now. But whenever I move the file to the group folder, I cannot have the file open, right? I cannot have my file open. Like, for example, let's see, I have something open here. Sprite new discovery. And now I'm going to do this intentionally. Well, two purposes. First purpose, I want to show you again how to move the file to the shared area. And second purpose is I want you to see the error message. Take a look. Move. Actually, the error message is going to pop up before I get a chance to select folder. See this? If you receive this error message, it means that you still have the file open. You need to close the file before you're trying to share it with your team. So if I was going to share my new discovery, Sprite new discovery with the team next, I would have to go in here and close it. Before I close it, I need to make sure that I don't see a little asterisk next to the file name, because the asterisk indicates that I didn't save the last change. And suppose that I was super in a hurry and I forgot to check the asterisk, I'm going to be prompted if I want to save or discard changes. I'm going to be prompted. So now let's go ahead and click on X. Clicking on X will just close this. And now let me show you again, and there's going to be a little refresh. Well, you're going to get a handout. By the time when you get closer to group work, you're going to get a little handout on sharing files. So now let's do this. Let's go to move. Watch, move. Now I have to find, I'm in a share, I have to expand the shared, and I need to find my folder for the course that I'm enrolled in, right? So here it is, Spring, and the group 1, and I'm going to do move. Now, there we go. And I want to keep the permissions as is, right? I want to keep it as is. Now, this is what's going to be. Now I'm going to pretend that I am a classmate, right? I'm another, perhaps I'm going to be the group member. I'm going to be another group member in group 1. In theory, it will not happen to me. It will not happen to me. But when my group member tries to open this discovery, she will get an error. He or she will get an error, right? My teammate is going to get an error. I did not get an error because the data that I use to build this discovery is in my personal area. I have access to it, right? I did not get the error message because I can still access the data. On the other hand, when my classmate logs in and tries to open this discovery, my classmate will receive the error message. And because I did not share the data with my classmate. So remember that whenever you share your discovery with your classmates, you also need to share the data that you use to build this discovery. Otherwise, your classmates will see an error. And when they walk through the slides, I'm going to show you how the error looks like. But I just wanted to point out first what I'm talking about, right? So you need to share the data. You need to share the data in addition to sharing the discovery, because the discovery depends on the data that you use to build it. Now, I changed my mind. The group project is temporarily over. I want to stop sharing it, or suppose that I want to make some changes to it. I want to unshare it. Look what I need to do. I need to click on ellipsis, and I need to do move, and now I have to move it to my personal area. And I'm going to see the message. That message is not an error. That message basically tells me that my group members will no longer be able to access it because I moved the file to my personal folder, which is okay. I'm doing what I wanted to do, right? Okay, that's done. Now, repeating how to unshare the data. To unshare the data, I would have to click on the ellipsis, and then I'm going to have to select move, right? Move. The process is the same for displays and for the storybooks, right? Or alternatively, I could also save this as a copy. For the data, for the models, and for the displays and infographics, I can save them as a copy. But this is not the case for the storybook. So when you work on a group assignment, keep that in mind and plan the time wisely, because only one person can have the file open at the same time. Only one person. And to have the file open, it does not necessarily mean that you currently logged in. If Take a look. I have this file open, right? Sprite findings. Even if I log out, I still have it open and still have a lock on it, right? So what's going to happen if at the same time my classmate logs in and tries to edit the file? It's going to be a big mess, right? If my classmate is lucky to edit the file, then my copy of the file that I had opened no longer valid. I'm going to end up with errors. Or if I forgot to save the last change, my classmates will not be able to save any changes. So this is the most common issue that I have seen in a group work. It's because whenever you sign out, right, whenever you're done with the work, make sure that you save it and you close the file. Logging out does not release the lock on a file. You need to close it, and I actually verified it with the IBM technician before. Even though it's a multi-user system, it does not mean that two or more people can work on the same file at the same time. It does not mean it. So this is something for you to keep in mind, right? And be really careful with the permissions. You want to make sure that the files in a group inherit the permission of the folder, because we don't want to lose access to our work. We don't want to lose access to our work, right? And even a bigger danger here, deleting a user from the system will result in deleting everything that was created by that user, even if it's in a shared area. So deleting me would also mean that we lose everything. in a shared area. Alright, so now what I'm gonna show you also is, let's go to the slides to make sure that I covered. It's a lot of important concepts here. So this is basically showing you the data menu, right? The Twitter data menu: refine, replace, rename, you can move, and you can delete, right? So basically almost same as other data assets you've been working with. Here I'm just summarizing the data that you see. The author's friend count, the number of tweets, number of followers, and you have the Twitter times, and the author locations, you got the hashtags, right? Now what I can do, and you guys will receive the copy of the slides. Here it's just basically showing you what you can do when you refine data. You can add filters, you can check the data quality score, and you can look at the properties, like we were changing the aggregation. Do you remember? When I wanted to check the number of posts rather than average number of posts, right? What you could also do is, this is a step, if you don't see the location hierarchy, this is how you can add one. I just summarize the steps how you can add one, right? So you have these instructions with you. Next, what I did here, I summarized the analysis that you can do for your data, and we just went through example where I did the analysis by location. So I have my country, then I can click on a country and get the breakdown by the state. I can click on a state and I can get the breakdown by the city, right? So this is called the drill down and drill up. Now, next one, this is a trend analysis. I can check what time of the day I have the highest number of posts, what time I have the lowest number, and so on. And here I'm just taking the area by the sentiment. I can do the word clouds, which shows the relative word frequency. Here I just showed you the steps how to do the relationships among the terms, so that's network. And here I think I'm using a little bit better example where I take the hashtags. The hashtags are the blue dots, and another one is showing me the sentiments positive indicators. So here it's basically trying to show the relationships, right? And I'm doing it, I'm looking at the author tweet count. So the tweet count, it represents the line thickness or line width. This is an example of the predictive models, and based on the search criteria that you put in, at times it just did not find any rules. I was going to use, initially I planned on using the one about the bazooka gum, which is also an interesting example, and most of the tweets come from Japan, but I did not use it. It's because it was unable to build the model. I wanted to be able to have the model as well. Here is a summary table you can do, and basically the table visualization is just gonna show the measures. And I did an example. I may have done an example. I'll see. Yes, this is an example. I just did it for you here for the table, so I can do the author country, and here are the measures, right? So across the top I have the measures, the tweet count, the author favorite counts, right? So I just put one example here. It's just for you to look at. If you want to do, here's the difference between table and the grid. Grid, I just pick two variables like gender and the polarity, but table rather shows me the measures. I'm counting the number of tweets by author, country, right? I'm counting the number of favorites by country, right? Where here I'm counting the number of posts with a neutral polarity by females, here neutral polarity by male, and so on, right? So that's a difference. And here I can see the breakdown, the number of tweets by countries. That's another way to see it. I can see it like this, I can see it as a table, or I can see it as a map. There is more than one visualization. Now, this is basically about the measures that we just looked at. Here, I'm just showing you the grid. This is a grid, right? The steps. What I did. See, this is the author gender. So here, this is going to be the row label. And you have the column label, and you have the cell details, right? So that way, you're going to have the copy of the slides, and you're going to have example to look at later on. And here, it's just a summary of how to create the infographic. We went through that, right? And I'm just summarizing the infographic menu. So basically, you pick the display, and you just drag and drop, right? And you have an area where you can define the filter, right? And you can hide and show the filters area. This is a new functionality. Some of you may have seen pattern analytics before, right? This is new. Show hide is new. You've got the view mode and the edit mode, and you have two little friends here, undo, redo. You can save, and you can also save it as a copy for the infographic. Here I'm just showing that you can click here, right, to see the visualization in the focus mode, and then you can change the format. If you notice that I changed the background just to show that it's possible, and you can delete, you can make a copy, and you can even rotate. You can rotate, right? Now here, this is just basically showing you how the view mode looks like, right? You have edit mode and you have a view mode. Here is a summary of how you create the storybook. Now, this is what we went through. We created the storybook for the sprite findings. And this is a list of the displays. You just drag and drop, right? We went through this. And we went through the view mode, right? Then we went through how we can do the data preview, right? Because if I go back here and if I select my storybook, I can just click, right? And I can actually preview my data, which is nice because I can see my columns, right? I can see it, my variables, and I can see if your storybook is utilizing more than one data set. You can see which top findings utilize each data set, right? So this is a nice part about it. So top finding is another word for dashboard, for display, right? Dashboard or infographics. So see this one, and this is a different storybook. That's not the one we looked at before, but this is a storybook about the UMUC, and it says that I have 4 top findings, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, right? One data set. That's basically how you interpret it. So let's close this. But looking at different storybooks, looking at different examples, actually giving you more ideas of what can be done, right? So now let's go back here, go back to our slides. Now we went over this, right? So this is basically the menu, and you click on ellipsis, and you can do the rename, move, and delete. Remember, deleting cannot be undone, the deletion cannot be undone. Another step that I did not cover is the Analytics Exchange page. I have to cover it. Now, take a look here. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to import the storybooks that experts created for me. There are some samples. I'm going to click here, and I'm going to select Analytics Exchange. I'm going to select Analytics Exchange, and here as a sample storybook, right? So I can pick the featured one, or I can select view all and see anything like that. So I can scroll and I can see this one, for instance. I want to pick maximal work management, and on YouTube there is a video actually about this storybook, and I put a link in one of my slides. We'll get there. Now, this is here. Make sure it's free. All of them are free at the moment, but still never hurts to check. Now, let me hit import. What it's gonna do is it will import the storybook. Import. At the same time, it will import the tab findings, right, or the displays that are associated with this storybook, and it's going to import the data sets associated with the storybook also. If the first storybook that you are importing, Watson Analytics will create a subfolder, and you will see it in your personal area. You will see the subfolders that will get added by Watson Analytics. You'll see it. But while it's still loading, so what I want to show you is that this page, it has the data and it has expert storybooks. And it's really useful because sometimes you want to see the work that's done by others before doing your own. Well, it's not because you're going to submit others' work. No, that's plagiarism. No. But the reason you want to look at it, it just gives you an idea about what visualizations you could do. It just any technique or anything that could help you when you analyze your data. And here is the link that I mentioned. These two sample storybooks. There is a video where the presenter explains what the storybook shows and why the storybook is useful for the managers. So let's see if it's still working on this. It's still working on it. It's now loading the assets, creating related assets. So it's going to create a subfolder with my with my displays rather, right? But while it's doing it, so we went over personal area and shared area, right? So every one of us will save the files in our personal area or in an area designated for our group. Anything saved in the wrong place will be gone. Now, the permissions, this is just mostly for your general information. Remember, if the permission is set to none, it means that you cannot see the file or the folder. For example, all of you cannot see the folder for another session. You should not, because I set the permission to none. View only, this is your permission for the other sample data set. You can view them, but you cannot edit them. View and edit is your permission for your team folder. It means that you can open any file in your team folder. You can add files to the folder. You can edit files in your team folder. But you won't be able, you cannot grant access to your classmates not in your group, right? You cannot grant access to somebody not enrolled in your session, something like that. And full control is for administrators, right? So next slides are basically a summary, and you're going to have a copy of this. So here in this demonstration, I pretended to be enrolled in Steve's session in the fall. So this is basically showing me the steps how to see my data that's in a group, right? And this is how I can share the file with a group, and you always want to make sure the file is closed. So now this is complete. Export is complete. Import, sorry, is complete. Let me close this. Now notice how elaborate it is. Nice picture. And now I've got the top findings with the nice thumbnails. And this is a company's logo. And speaking of logos, you can also add logo to the storybook that you create. You might probably want to add something like UMUC or something funny, like a dream team or something. Now we click here. You also can preview the data. and you also can see which visualizations the data effects and so on. Let me close this out and let me go back to my landing page just to see what happened behind the scene here. So personal, I have a folder called imported, and right, that's a folder that it will be created for you. It will be created for you when you import your first storybook, and in here I have a subfolder for each storybook. So when I click here and when I have data active, it's going to show me the data set that it's using for the storybook. Now, for some reason, I'm still trying to understand why it does not import the discoveries, but it does import the displays that were used to build the storybook. So if any of these displays is missing, my storybook would be getting an error, and I will show you. I have it all in the slides. So now, see that this slide is showing you how to share a file with a group. Here, this is just showing you how the file will look like, right? The file in the shared folder. And here, see this group one, it tells you the file location. And now remember, you can toggle between the list and tile layout, right? So here is just basically a summary. Here, this is a summary of steps to move the file to the shared area. Always make sure the file is closed, right? Otherwise, you'll get a reminder. And now here, this is an example of the work that's due for deletion. Because the problem is it's saved at the root of the shared folder. See, so sometimes it's good to see an example of what gets deleted before it's actually deleted, right? Here, this is a little bit of the troubleshooting. This is the error message that your group member will receive when you share the discovery, but you don't share the data that you used to create the discovery. So this is the error message. Now here, I just put together these relationships for you. So basically here, what we did, we have different data sets, right? We can have, I'm just using an example, 3. Then I can create 2 discoveries from the first data set. I can create 2 more from the second data set. Then I'm using the third data set to create 3 discoveries. Now what I do is I create my first display with first 2 discoveries. I'm creating the second display with 2 discoveries. And now I'm creating the infographics. I'm using these 4. I'm using these 4 displays, right? So I have this data set involved and this data set involved. 2 data sets involved. And this is a storybook, right? So what's happening here is that if I just have the storybook and nothing else, only the storybook, I'm going to see the error. And this is the error. There will be a message. The display could not be found. This is an error message. This is what's going to happen if I have access to the storybook, right? But if I don't have access to the data, right? See this? It says 0 data set. It's because I don't have access to the data. And says the display could not be found. It's because because the person who opened the storybook, right, never received access to display inside the storybook. So this is the error message that you get. Now, suppose that I go in, right? I go in and adjust. I share the display, but I don't share the data. This is what's going to happen. Your workbook is going to work, right? You will be able to see the visualization, right? However, well, here the message will say that you have 1 data set, but when you click over here, when you click here to preview the data, you will see the message no data available. No data available. This is a message that you will see when you try to preview data. So that means that your teammate needs to share the data with you, right? So that's what the dependency means, that you have to share, right? Because if I cannot see the data, I cannot do the preview data here. If I don't have permission to see the display, then I won't see it here, right? Now, here are some of the links that you could use, and metadata is the data about data. So the pages basically explains the meaning of some of the fields. So you may find it very helpful, right? The structure, and here are some videos on how to load data and how you can analyze it. And there are some videos in the Storybook, in addition to some workbooks that are in a classroom. So I talked for about an hour and a half. Now it's your turn. Questions. Questions. Elena loves questions. Let me see if we have something in the chat. Okay. I don't see anything in the chat. No questions. So then, if Elena gets no questions, then she starts asking questions. Do you remember the difference between dashboard and infographics? Can anyone remember it? Right? We went over today. So, are there any tabs in the infographics? No, right? The dashboard has tabs. Now, how many of you remember what we cannot do, what we should not do? Number one, no back button, right? Number two, where we're not going to save the files. We're not going to save it at the root folder, right? Because if it happens, then that's it. Well, if you catch it early enough, you can move it back to your personal area, right? Just by unsharing. If you catch it before I catch it, right? Now, let's see if you have questions. More questions? The dashboard has... Oh, excellent question. The dashboard rather has two types of filters. The dashboard has two types of filters. The first type of filter applies to the single tab, and the second type of filters applies to all tabs. Infographics is only going to have the filter to apply to a single tab because there is only one tab, right? So if you look at here, displays personal, right? If I look at the infographics, then I'll see, oops, I see what I just did. I was using the wrong, okay, here it is, sorry. So now, see this? This is okay. I have to select my personal folder, personal. Okay, now I'm looking at the right place. And what I have to, here it is, look at this. I'm gonna open this infographic right now. Watch. Yes, there is only one filter location. Why? Because there are no tabs, right? So there is no way to apply the filter to multiple tabs if there is just one tab. So now what I could do is, let me go back, and on the other hand, on the dashboard, I have more than one tab, right? I use this dashboard right here. These places, there are two tabs. So what I could do is I could define the filter that applies only to the current tab, right? Or, so I would have to put it here. Or, alternatively, I can define the filter that will apply to all visualization in all tabs, regardless of the number of tabs that I have. So, Victor, did I answer the question? No, this was an excellent question. I like this question. Yeah.
Hi, Elena. This is
Yes.
Victor. I don't know if I'm allowed to speak. Can I?
You are. Go ahead.
Okay, okay. Yes, actually, it was a point that I identified with during your presentation, because I knew the previous assignments we were taught that dashboard has two filters, the global and the local
Mhm.
filter, but I noticed that in the infographics he only has
Mhm.
one. So thank you so much. You you
Mhm.
explained it well.
Oh, you're the most welcome. Yes, because there are no tabs. That's the reason. Yep, exactly. Yeah,
Mm.
but that's one explanation. Well, sometimes you decide what you want to use, right? You want to use a dashboard, you want to use you want to use an infographic. But if you want to be able to filter perhaps 5 out of 10 visualization on a certain criteria, then you have 2 tabs, and you can apply the filter to the tabs, right? Well, it's a decision. So when you create Storybook as a group, there is some planning involved. So that's something for you guys to keep in mind, and also keep in mind the Watson Analytics maintenance window. You don't want to be working during the maintenance window, but what I've noticed that the maintenance page may or may not be displayed. May or may not be displayed. Sometimes it's not. So it depends. Yep. So do we have more questions? I like questions. Well, I promise we're not gonna stay until morning, but I want to make sure that we have the questions answered. So it's an opportunity. Anybody? Yeah. So if you do not want to share my visualization using a storybook without taking screenshots, how do I import? Oh, I see. To import the visualization to PowerPoint. Oh, this is an excellent question. Excellent question. For the storybook, there is no share PowerPoint. There is no share PowerPoint. Let me double check again, but I think there is no. I think it's only for the infographics and for the displays. But to be sure, Elena needs to check. Yes, that's right. There is no PowerPoint, no email for the storybook. Secretly, the storybooks meant to be published. We don't have this permission to publish them at the exchange site, but in general, they're meant for the publication and import. Yeah. But for the storybook, we cannot save it as a copy, right? I asked that question at the Watson Analytics forum last week, and we cannot make a copy. We can only have them either in personal area or share with the team. It cannot be both. So this is very important. You want to plan your time accordingly, right? Or as you're working on assignment, you can also do the Google Hangout and share the screen. You can use your MUSE email account comes with Google Hangout, so you can do the shared session, and you can try to find the time that works for your group, and you can share the screen and work together. Only one person can make changes to the file at the same time, right? While your group member makes changes, you cannot have the file open, but they have nice tools. They have a Google Hangout. Your email comes with Google Hangout, so you can use that to work on your group project, right? When you create a storybook, you may find it helpful. Yeah. So let's see. Do we have questions? Elena likes questions, and if you have follow-up questions, feel free to send an email. So question and answer session does not end at the end of this presentation. So let's see, questions going once. Steve, is there anything that I may have forgotten to say?
No, I think it's very thorough. I think you've done a great job. Really insightful and really beneficial. So I think the students will have a great way to go from now.
Thank you. And they can feel free to ask the follow-up questions. As I mentioned, the question and answer session does not end at the end of the presentation. They can send follow-up questions. Yeah.
Hi, Helena.
Hi. Oh, yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is Victor again. Most of my classmates and myself have noticed that certain changes could not be saved, or the if you're trying to save the changes, it failed on Watson Analytics, and
Oh,
also it's become increasingly slow.
Mhm.
in a couple of days. I don't know if there's any insight or advice you could give to improve the speed, because most of us use the hardwire and even have high-speed internet, but it's still
Mhm.
slow. I don't know if there's something you can share that can help us improve the speed.
Sure. The number of files I have open on my laptop at the same time. The number of background processes I have on my PC at the same time. To be quite honest, well, I have Windows 10. At some point, I thought that I had a virus, but I did not. I thought that my my laptop, it was not just running. Everything was just frozen. But then I found out that Windows 10 had some processes that run on the back end, like something collect the information and so on. So you may want to check your background processes. Uh, well, in general, things that you would do to make a PC run faster. That's part of it. And you want to change, you want to minimize the animations, and try to turn off anything that you don't need. Well, yeah. Also, we need a little bit of patience, like you saw. While the storybook was loading, I was going through the slides, right? That's a little trick I used during the presentation. So that's why, well, it was loading, but you may think that it was fast. It's because while it was loading, I was showing you the next slide. But yes, it did take some time for me too. You saw it was about 3 minutes for the storybook to load, something like that. Yes. So and try avoid clicking the back button. The browser I've been using the Firefox or the Google Chrome. Yeah. It also depends if they're doing the maintenance, right? So avoid going into the system during the maintenance window, right? Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Yeah. So let's see what else. Anything else? No. I guess if we have no question, then we are done, right?
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, I'll stop the recording. Thanks.
Sure.